Okay, we're live.
Yeah. I'm not an engineer.
Oh, I need to.
Hey, everybody.
Oh, hi, Alex.
These. Pretty.
Yeah.
Well, but that's not a difference.
Although this was just that dark because I'm in.
Well,
The light. Not funny that you can't get the same way.
Are those normally used for that purpose? Right, that's,
Yeah,
Because nothing's on the inside, right, of my cameras.
there's a bit in there, not much. There is a bit in there.
There's got some displays and.
really,
Yeah, like,
So people could go in there and be able to.
You could, yeah. When, sometimes it's unlocked. I mean, it's just a straight up, but there's some display on the door, there's.
like too many unknown soldier
Yeah,
type thing.
I was gonna call it an alter look. It has the look of alter, but it's on. Interesting. Yeah, it's, but it's there, yeah. There's not a lot. I wish there were, but not a lot.
so
Oh,
like,
my, yeah.
and then, yeah, when you look.
Hi Sarah. Can you hear us okay?
Okay, good to, get to know this one better.
Sad.
Okay, yeah, sorry, that was.
Right, so it's open and then kind of exchange.
Oh,
I
I don't know if you want some kind of. Yeah, where's the microphone? Oh, there's up there, okay. What else do we? Every time I. Oh, it's that. You know. Extra.
That's what I mean.
I'm glad I left work before this. So should we?
Yeah, we can start. We're gonna record them, so.
Okay, so we're gonna call the meeting to order. Thank you, everybody, for coming. This is a full house here at this time, so I'll do the land acknowledgement. I acknowledge with respect that we are in Robinson here on treaty territory. That the land on which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe known as Wading. Wading is the home of the Garden River First Nation, Batchewana First Nation, and the historic Sault Marie Métis Council. That makes me emotional reading that. I'm glad it's part of the agenda. The next agenda item is adoption of the minutes. And we need a mover and a seconder, please. Yeah, please. And a seconder. Tony, great, thank you. And the third agenda, item, we have to vote. Thank you, Virginia. All in favor, I always forget this. Any opposed, and that motion's carried. The next agenda item is declaration of pecuniary interest. If no one is saying anything, thank you. Number 4, adoption of the agenda. I had a couple of questions. Do they come up under new business?
Yep, but we could put them under new business.
Do I tell you what they are?
Is it a new topic?
2 different topics.
Yep, okay. So we
Okay.
could do it as
As amended?
amended.
Do you want me to tell me the topic?
Yep, because then we'll say with the additions of.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so I have one question about the there's a cairn at the next door to the Algoma Conservatory that is the war memorial.
Okay.
And which is designated, and there's a cairn inside the building, or there's a plaque inside the building that is a memorial. Also, and that's my question, is that second plaque inside the building?
I'd have to check.
Pardon?
I'd have to check, yeah.
You'd have to check.
Yeah.
And the second topic is not mine, but I'm bringing it here because I've been asked to. It's a long story, but it relates to commemorative plaques for cultural events. And I know it's outside of the mandate of this group, but it has come up and I just brainstorming of how that might work potentially in the future. Any other agenda changes from this statement? Don't need a mover. Sorry, the same two people, so how about Sunny at least this time?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, we'll go online next time for the mover and seconder on Zoom. So we need to approve the motion, everyone? And that carry? Okay. And so Virginia, to you, is there business arising from this, from the minutes?
Yeah, so it'd be Memorial Tower.
Oh,
It's the 5.1.
Oh, all right, perfect.
So that will be the big topic of discussion. So we did have an opportunity to have a site visit on Monday to take a look at the glass blocks. So Telek Engineering brought down the 2 samples, which I have brought here today as well for committee members to take a look at. I'm going to bring up photos as well. So I'm just going to share my screen. So this is a close-up of the 2 types of block. This is the one with the 3 sections. And that has a profile on the back that is not flat. It has a bit of a raised profile, which would change the appearance of how it looks on the inside. The ones on the inside are flat on both sides. So that's the first one. So you can see this has 3 sections where these ones have 4, and I don't know if I zoom in. If you can see how the blocks, the older style blocks have one side of the block, they're running vertical. And then on the inside, the ribs are running parallel.
Oh,
So you can see that little bit of it's very hard to see in that picture, but when we were in the tower, you could see when the light was coming through the difference. So the one block, which is this next one. I'll zoom down to here. Out of order, sorry. You can see it's got 5 an extra ribs, so 1 more than what's there presently, but it also has the vertical and parallel differences on the glass block, depending on the side. So I'm gonna come back up to here, so this is the 2 differences between the glass blocks. So on the inside of the building, in order to install them, they're there's a bit of a relief, so you can see where you look here, a bit of the block is cut off. Because there's a little bit of a relief on the inside of the building that they get set into. So you lose a little bit on each side. We did have a little bit of discussion, Colin, I think Colin, you had brought up the point about, you know, if we went with that, are we gonna have to look at potentially shaving off some pieces of that profile that's protruding versus doing it in one that's flat on both sides?
Plus, like, having just the 3, the ones on the edge, I don't think it would look right, cause you've got all kinds of lines, lots of lines, and then those ones would look kind of bizarre on the ends.
Yeah, it'll cut off more, I think.
Yeah.
It'll be more noticeable how much is cut off, yeah.
Yeah.
Any other comments, discussion, thoughts?
I like this one better.
Yeah.
I agree, it does have the additional, you know, I think it's 6 lines instead of 5, but it's considering it has the cross hatching, it's much truer to the original, and I think the construction considerations are a bit more simple for that one.
Any other, Sarah? Any thoughts? You had a chance to,
Yeah, I would prefer if for the photo that you're currently sharing on the screen, I would prefer the one at the top.
Okay.
Yeah.
any other,
I'm the only one who feels like it's kind of prison-y though. Like, that's kind of why I initially like this one more, because it just seems a little bit more open, but like this one's just so like barred and I don't know. And I think especially given what what this building like represents and what's inside, like, I don't know if there's that consideration at all, but you know, I hear the simplicity in terms of the installation and everything. But I don't know, that's just a consideration.
So your feeling is that would let in more light?
I think so, and I just think, cause like if you kind of look at how, just the way that all the lines kind of line up, it just looks like, I don't know, like it just looks like a prison cell, like that's honestly what I think of when I see this pattern.
yeah, I'm gonna just go down, I'll go down to the bottom one again. There, kind of gives a little bit of a better, because it was, I think. I probably should have stacked them differently too, just to flip them, because there's more white behind this one right now. You can see a little bit of a difference when it has the white behind it versus the darker glass.
I wondered whether that one would reflect more light because it's got more. Looking at the moment, it seems to be reflecting more light. Anyway,
Yeah, it's more light is gonna go through because you haven't got the dirt and the fading, like the dirt. Accumulated over all of those years, so hopefully there will be more light transfer. From a patterning standpoint, I understand, I get what you're saying with the light coming through. I like the consistency of the because it was a little bit more consistent with the existing material, having the parallel vertical combination. In there, we can request, and again, these are just two samples that. Telek was able to find. It doesn't mean there's not other sources that are out there.
You had a question? Yeah.
No, sorry, I was counting.
Oh, I had just a quick question for clarity then. Sorry, I wasn't able to make it on Monday. The existing has the same pattern, the exact same cross pattern?
It's 5, I think
Right.
it's a number of lines is different, but yeah, it's.
Horizontal
it's
and
Horizontal on one side, vertical on the other.
vertical on the other. Is it just not as pronounced in the photos then perhaps? Like once this block would be installed,
You could see it.
would it be, you know,
It became more like when we went inside, so I don't know. So you can see here, in this case, instead of having them all run vertically, they had. I don't know if this was a patch, if it was a repair at one point, where they have some that were this way. So this is what the flip side of this block looks
and we
like.
don't know if that's intentional or not.
There, it seemed to be random, from what I could tell, it
Right.
didn't seem to be
If
consistent.
if you look at the one above it, you know, you've got 3 verticals, then vertical or horizontal, vertical,
They may not
horizontal.
even pay
and-
attention, to be honest, when
Yeah.
they.
Well, I think they said they have to replace them throughout, right? So just
Over the
kind of,
years, yeah.
Right,
Doing
okay.
that.
But so, but to Vanessa's point, that, the way it, like the aesthetics of that is more subdued on the ones that are in there, it's not as pronounced, that cross hatching, I'll call
You
it.
can see it, yeah, especially when you can see it more so when you were standing inside the building.
yeah.
And you had the light coming in, I found it was more pronounced inside the building, seeing the differences just because of the way the light was streaming as opposed to looking into the darker. Cause the lights weren't on at the time when we were looking on the outside. But yeah, I think that this was just a random pattern, I don't think that there was any, it was probably just, yeah, gotta pop this glass in, away we go, right?
But it's a pleasant effect on the inside too. We were there on Monday, like I think it's I don't know, not quite church-like, but it's a nice diffuse light that I think is appropriate for the intention of the
yeah,
of the building.
Yeah, and I might be able to go back to you on the historical photos just to confirm. You know, if you go back a number of years, if you could see that the pattern was all, initially vertical on the outside.
yeah.
Just to confirm that, or
Oh.
see that it was,
How we want it.
I'm assuming that it was. random by accident, not necessarily intentional, because it, you know. But we can take a look and see what we can dig up from some of those initial unveilings and that to try to cross-reference. Any other thoughts, discussion?
We don't need a motion or anything.
We do, yeah,
We do need a motion?
yeah, and I'm working on it right now.
Cause I noticed at our last meeting, we approved the, we resolved, yeah. That the rehabilitation project go ahead, but they're waiting to hear our choice of glass.
They've been working on getting everything ready, but, so they've been working with our purchasing department. But if we can get this resolution done, then it'll be a complete package as opposed to an addendum that would be added on to the,
Oh, okay, good.
to the request for quotations.
I know I think I brought it up when we were on site, but they weren't, I think they had alluded to the price being relatively similar between the two.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I heard that too, yeah. And we've decided that we're replacing all the glass blocks.
that's the other
That's the
piece,
plan.
so
We did decide that?
did know, that's
No, we
part of
didn't.
what,
Okay.
yeah, that's
I
part
heard,
of,
I
No
heard it, but
discussion, I know it was discussion.
that's part of what we have to discuss,
Okay.
so again, you know, looking at them. There's at least 20 right now that have to be replaced. There are some others that are cracked. And as Dan pointed out, there's no guarantees that more will break as you go through this process. So I think from a integrity standpoint, he had presented a couple options. The option where we would have to do some infill and maintain the blocks, I would recommend against that because that is changing. It changes the look, it changes the structure, so that would be, I would take that option off the table, so then the option that would remain is to intersperse these new blocks with the old blocks or to fully move to a new block. So that's,
Is that you, are we doing two separate motions, one to pick a block? and
it'll
to
be
the-
one motion, yeah, I'll wrap it into one motion, just once we have that consensus or decision, so, yeah, so that's up for discussion.
Yeah, Sarah.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I just have a question about that. So I would personally, I would rather see us if we have the budget to replace all of them at the same time, but also to order, a contingency for if any break during installation and also for any repair work in the future. Not sure if we have the budget for that, but I would rather see us do that than just order piece by piece because there's no guarantee that we would be able to source them at a later date.
That's a good point, Sarah, making sure that we have a good supply of them. They're not overly expensive, I think they're $20 to $30 a block, so it's not. For the hassle to try to have to get new blocks, if something goes missing, it's better off to order a nice size, extra stock to have on hand.
Yeah, I would prefer that we do that, particularly if we have the budget for it in this fiscal.
Okay. Any other discussions or preference on direction?
Not a vote, but my preference would be to replace all of them. I think we talked about this last meeting. Exactly for those reasons that we're going to break more, and I know we can find a use for the other blocks, the original blocks. I know we can find use for them.
We can find something interesting.
Right. Something very respectful and service members.
Sorry, I'm just writing this.
No, go ahead.
Everybody motion, Virginia?
Trying to.
Okay. While Virginia's writing that motion, I'll just ask a general question. Do we have anyone or any ability to actually document the restoration as it occurs? The reason I ask is in 50 years, it's not going to be us sitting here. Someone else is going to be sitting at this table and they're going to be saying, wonder what they did. And I wonder why they did that. And I wonder if we had some kind of documentation of the restoration, whether it's video, photos, some kind of a log, other than meeting minutes.
So with the engineering, they usually do progress reports, and in the progress reports, they have photos at the various stages. But we can also have, you know, staff will go out and take
Right.
pictures as well, in addition to what they would be taking as part of the actual reporting that we get back from Telek.
Yeah, the reporting, we've seen those are sterile reports. This is a really important, in my opinion, really important piece in our community. And will be for the foreseeable future. We're making a very significant investment in it at this time. And I would love people to see, I don't know if Tessa and the team could do a short video or something.
That's a great idea.
That's
Yeah,
great.
they would be, probably go out and do something.
Right, and whether it's a time lapse or this or that, something,
Oh,
we can certainly provide a million ideas to them, but I would love to see. The process documented, so future generations will say, hey, in 2025, here's exactly what happened and why, and what they did and how here's the installation of the blocks and how it happened back then.
yeah, we were inside the building on Monday and I was more interested in the artwork on the wall than I was in the
Right.
glass blocks. And I suggested that we could have the site open for doors open. And maybe have somebody from the Legion in there talking about, the Boer War and the
Yeah.
Michilimackinac and all of the
Yeah.
war, all of the history stuff, because, yeah.
Yeah, I would hate the process and these conversations to be lost to time and space, and
Yeah.
Mhm.
to understand what we were thinking and feeling at this point in time.
But I like the idea of a video though, that we could do a digital.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I think it's a notable, like, as somebody who's relatively new to the Sioux as well, it's a prominent landmark in the city. And I knew that it had some, connection to the Soldiers Memorial, but to go in there and see it, like, I think there are probably a lot of people in the Sioux that, know of the Memorial Tower and might know that it has some significance to sacrifices that were made, but to your point,
Right.
like, kind of a not only this is what we're doing here, but this is why it's important, kind of not a sales pitch, but to give people an idea of what we're up to, both
Yeah.
now and in the future.
And it doesn't just light up red on gate.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah.
when they built I wasn't living here at the time, I don't think, but when they built the new hockey arena. And the decision was made that the Memorial Tower be retained, was there documentation of that decision-making process?
Yeah, there's a whole, actually 2 binders on the Memorial
Oh,
Tower in
really?
the office, so.
Okay,
All of the correspondence, any of the engineering reports, all of that I keep in a file, so every heritage property. If you're ever interested,
Oh, yeah.
has an entire
You're right,
binder, or
okay.
multiple binders associated with it, documenting.
Okay. perfect.
Yeah, all of that, so I think I have a
All right.
resolution.
Okay,
Resolve that the Municipal Heritage Committee recommend that the glass blocks be replaced with new glass blocks. And further, that the new glass blocks match the dimensions of the existing glass blocks. And further, the blocks have a similar pattern with vertical lines on one side and horizontal lines on the other. And extra blocks be ordered for future replacement. A lot of glass.
Do we need something that says replace all?
Replaced with new, replace all.
replace all with, yeah, okay.
And that the originals be retained.
Be fully replaced. Okay, I'll read this again. Resolved, that the Municipal Heritage Committee recommend the glass blocks be fully replaced with new glass blocks, retaining the original blocks to be stored for a future date. And further, that new glass blocks match the dimensions of the existing blocks. And further, that they have a similar pattern with vertical lines on one side, horizontal lines on the other side, and extra blocks be ordered for future replacements. Is that- All right, perfect.
Okay, we need a mover of that motion.
I'll move.
Sunny, your hand is up. Very good. Anyone, do we have a seconder? Is Sarah's hand is up? Thank you, Sarah. I thought that. So we, all in favor? Thank you, sorry. And that carried.
All right.
Thank you. I'm glad we made a decision because, that way they can go ahead with the full.
Yeah.
A full,
Yeah.
package. So the next agenda item 5.2 is the museum bell.
Okay, so we have more good news. Sioux College is ready to take on our project.
Wow.
Yeah, and the school starts September 2nd, so the first 3 to 4 weeks, the students are getting their safety done. So in the following week, the last week of September, they should be able to start on our project. They would just need to have the material a week
Okay.
prior to.
Okay, and was the teacher gonna confirm the material list? That was everything he needed, or will he send that to us?
Well,
I
that
know
would
we have
be
the one-
whoever is doing the drawings, right? That
Yes.
would-
Oh, that's right.
Yes, that's another
Hard.
yes. Our Hannah was taking care of that part.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Okay, perfect.
Okay.
All right, we'll figure that one out. That's good news.
Yes, I'm happy.
Thanks for your work on that.
We don't need a motion or anything. for that.
Not right yet, no.
Okay,
There's, keep on trucking.
so number 6 is the subcommittee task force updates. And the first one is doors open. So we have chosen a date of October 4th to Saturday. We had a subcommittee meeting. And we're looking at finalizing the list of sites. And we're unfortunately adding more sites to the list. I think we're gonna, bring it right up again. And yeah,
There'll be 2 waves of communication that go out. So Jamie pulled the letter from the other year and updated it. So that's gonna go out to the major organizations first, so museum, Bush Plane, and start to get some of those organizations on board. That'll be kind of that first wave, and then we're gonna start to look at reaching out to some of the property owners to see if they'll be interested. We talked about the walking tours, the heritage bike tour. So there was a lot of great ideas that came out. So once we were able to select the date last week, I reached out to Gordon Pym, who's our contact at Ontario Heritage Trust. So we now have our site is set, so now we just have to start building our site out and populating it, so we have access to it, and then we'll just continue to add to it as the sites come on board and we build our volunteers and. So yeah, so now the next phase is to start that outreach to all those organizations, so.
I looked at the trust, the site this morning and our date is on there for the first time. So I did let Jonathan Pinto know that we have a date, so. I expect him to be excited and involved in this. In this project,
So yeah, and I guess one of the other pieces is volunteers, so we're hoping that each of the main organizations, whether it's the library or art gallery or museum, will be able to have some of their volunteers and staff on site for those locations. But then when we start to look at other locations that might be out there, we'll need to look at trying to recruit some volunteers for the day.
yeah,
Because,
properties.
yeah, if we end up having private properties or, the walking tours or other spaces that they may have, not as have a larger pool of volunteers to draw from, they're gonna probably need some support from us. We also had, people on hand to hand out brochures, to have the posters up, delivering that day, all the materials that, we have at each of those sites. So there was quite a few volunteers that we had involved last time, so, to start brainstorming some of your friends, family and network to see if they might be interested to help out that day.
So we got some supplies from Ontario Heritage Trust, some flags and.
I still have,
banners and-
yeah, so we should be getting some more materials. I still have all of the I don't know, the
Oh,
wire
the
frame.
Wire frames,
uh,
yes.
Signs that you can put out saying this is a doors open site, so I still have all of those in storage from the last time we did the doors open. I think there's probably about 15 to 18 of those signs. We'll probably have to update some of our materials, but at this time it should be a little bit easier. Last time we had to create all of our handouts from scratch. So they were created right from start to finish, whereas we have a solid base to work on this time, so. Which is gonna allow us to potentially expand a little bit.
Yeah, we have a Facebook page and an Instagram page.
Yeah,
Um,
and Josh is working on updating some of the social media posts, so
Oh,
we can
good.
start to, it'll be a good resource to help us as we move
That's
forward
good to
with
hear.
that.
Have the colors changed? Like last year, it was yellow and Last time it was yellow and purple.
We just got access last week,
Oh,
so
okay.
he'll have to go in to see what the brand kit looks like. To see
Okay.
if there was any changes in their brand kit that they're providing.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
I apologize, this was discussed previously. What are the target dates for
the 4th of October. It's a Saturday.
one?
And then in 2022, we did it on the first Saturday in October as well, and it's part of Ontario Cultural.
Yeah, it falls within the window for Ontario Culture Day, so it's
Yeah.
a nice fit. With all the
Excellent.
activities that are going on, especially during that time frame. The activities need to be free, so we can also cross promote on the Culture Days website.
If I remember right, we're the most well attended in the province.
Yes,
Culture Days.
yeah,
The Sioux.
yeah, we have a strong committee that works on that event each year, and there's a lot of organizations in the community that contribute,
Yeah.
host events for the community, so it's a great month to get out and be able to, partake in a lot of different activities.
Yeah, Jonathan Pinto wanted to come last time, but he couldn't get a hotel room, so because there's so much going on here with the tour train and all the other events. When's our next meeting for the doors open? Do we have one?
I don't know if I did it, we don't know yet or not.
Just in case anybody.
April 24th, I have written down.
Oh, okay, I'll write that down too. Check my calendar.
Hopefully it's in
Okay.
there.
Great, thank you. Then the next topic is the heritage booklet and video tours, and we had a meeting of that committee as well.
Yeah, so we had, that meeting was 2 weeks ago, I believe. So since that time, Jamie's had a review and done some more edits. So Josh is going to be starting to, now that we have a bunch of the edits in, he's gonna do another round of updates in the brochure. So he's gonna start working on that. And then once we have a solid draft with all of those edits incorporated and the changes that we discussed at the meeting, then we'll call another meeting, which will probably be sometime towards the very end of the month or the first week of May. So there's quite a few changes that we have to incorporate in there. So the goal would be to have everything hopefully done in the summer so that we can start production and have everything ready to go by doors open at the latest. So
Yeah. And then we're going to share that with like the Heritage Sites Board and other.
historic sites for it, yeah,
Historic, sorry, and yeah,
it'll be
a couple other
circulated.
people,
to
some of the consultants that we need to check the wording and all that.
Yep.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So yeah, once we feel the draft
The
version
the text part
is
of it is
where we
yeah.
need it, then we'll circulate that to the broader group and to some of our community partners as well.
Okay, bye Alex, we'll see you again. And then the photos, there will be another project in the captions. It's a huge, you know, as I kept adding more sites to that booklet, I realized it's been 25 years and it's, we just realized all the work that we've been done in the last 25 years. And then any questions on the booklet? Sarah, no, heritage trees.
We were supposed to have a meeting this week, but unfortunately I had to cancel it, but I sent out a kind of a summary document, so. Right now, kind of the information I sent out to the committee members was to take a look at. There's components of the tree scoring that can get done without having to go out and do the field work. So Tim Ladd, who's retired, but he was the tree specialist with Ontario Forestry. He's going to do the first parts, which are the scoring of the rarity of the species, and there's 2 categories there. And then there's also 2 categories of background research which come into the historical and cultural significance of the tree. So the worksheet's out there, so now we're just gonna look to committee members to see if there's trees that they're interested in doing some research on to determine that historical and cultural significance. So it has to meet at least 2 of the criteria for designation in order to move forward with a recommendation. There's a total of 10 criteria for scoring, and there's a whole scoring matrix. I can send that out for new committee members in case you haven't been able to take a look at it. But some of it requires actually measuring the the taking all the tree measurements, trying to determine the age of the tree, the health of the tree, so actually looking at the tree during the season to see if it's a healthy tree, if it's a tree that's already potentially dying and needs to be taken down for safety reasons. That factors into the whole decision-making process as well, so there's a bunch of field work that now has to come with the scoring. And each of the categories is scored on a scale of 1 to 4, and there's a whole scoring matrix that's set up, so. Yeah, it's a little bit of a process, so hopefully we can wrap this one up this year and see if there's any of the trees that do meet the criteria for designation.
But can you estimate how many trees would be designated?
There's 21 trees designated in Ontario,
Oh, wow, okay.
so that's all of Ontario, so
Right.
they have to meet that
Okay.
criteria,
That's all
so.
right, yeah. And are the trees you're looking at clustered in downtown or Belvin Park or?
They're fairly spread out, eh, Sarah? There's trees that are in kind of some of the older neighborhoods, Whitefish Island, all the way out to
Oh.
Wallace Terrace.
Okay.
So they're spread out a little bit all over the place, the ones that have come through. By no means is this necessarily an exhaustive list. There may be others that as we start getting out there and looking at that do come to the forefront as well, but this was a starting point of trees that were suggested that came in,
So
so
you're probably looking at less than a handful that are gonna meet the criteria?
it could be 2, it could be 1, it could be none,
Right.
right? Because
Okay.
it's gotta have that, in addition to it just being old, because there's a lot of old trees, it has to be rare, it has to have a historical connection or cultural connection, so you have to, there's a lot of factors that go
Wow.
into it. The scoring matrix is pretty detailed, right, Sarah, or?
Yeah, I don't expect that we would have more than 1 or 2 that may meet the criteria. I
Right.
think that's even far-fetched, but it's still good work to do so that, perhaps, if something else comes to our attention, this isn't my home community. I didn't grow up here, so I'm not really familiar with all of these trees. I've only seen a handful of them at this point. But I do expect that doing the work may, add to the local history, not necessarily meet the criteria that the province has set out, though.
Thanks, Sarah. And Tim's been a great resource just with his background at Free. I think he was heavily involved in the development of the Arboretum at the time, so he brings with him a great deal of knowledge when it actually comes to the species and that side of analyzing the trees for us.
Nice. Okay. My neighbors are not very happy with my trees right now. I have some very old trees, but. Okay, so number 7 is new business, so one question I had was, in the booklet, there's a memorial cairn. Next door to the Algoma Conservatory, and on a rock, well, the rock might not be the right word, but the plaque is erected in memory of the men of Abitibi Power and Paper Company who gave their lives in the Second World War. There's another plaque inside the building that is from the Spanish River Pulp and Paper Company of their employees who died during the First World War. And I'm wondering, my question is, one has the city crest on it in the booklet.
Mhm.
Is it possible to have the plaque that's indoors receive the same city crest, same recognition? Potentially,
Yeah, I can,
or has it been done already?
I'd have to check.
Okay,
I'm
like I don't
not-
know the process, like,
Is it? It's not in the book though, right?
no, it isn't, no.
So-
I've written the entry and I've
Yeah.
sent it to you, I've taken the picture. I was in there for a concert and I had just done a lot of this work and I'm in the elevator and the door's closed. And I'm looking across at the plaque and I'm seeing the word, Spanish River, and I'm thinking Spanish. No, it's Abitibi, right? So I am thinking about it the whole thing of the concert, and when I get downstairs, I, read the plaque. And of course, this one is World War II, and the one that I'm reading is World War I. But, so I would, if it is not designated, my question is, how hard would it be to have that?
Yeah, we'd have to take a look too, right, to see if it was. if they closed a mill and brought it here, or if it was always there, like we
Oh,
have
I
to check to
don't
see the history on how.
Where the plaque came from.
Yeah, in the event that it was maybe just moved here and.
From somewhere.
From
Well, that's a
somewhere
good
else.
point. You know,
Yeah.
I was thinking that when we were inside Memorial Tower. There's all kinds of plaques like that, like there was one at Collegiate years ago when I was a student. Probably every high school, probably, other high schools that the tech probably have.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and it's for some of them, if the school board erected it, it may have been done without us knowing, so we have
Oh,
to do a
yeah,
little bit of
easily,
digging
yeah.
to find out more.
I think they
information.
ended up at the museum, is it like, I know the Collegiate, I'm pretty sure the one at Collegiate ended up. At the museum, it was in the Clayton Auditorium, anyway, that's, separate topic, but so I would, this is it, is that what that means, that it's designated?
It was part of they had a whole process where they went through and identified all the plaques and cairns, so there's a whole
Oh.
process.
And they all went through in one go and got,
A lot of them were done at the same time. So
Okay.
They did a whole batch listing, which is
Oh,
what
I
they
see.
called it, so now you tend to do them individually, so it has an individual bylaw number. As
Mm. Oh, okay.
opposed to there being 10 properties bundled into one bylaw number, so the
Oh,
process
okay.
has changed a little bit.
Okay,
They don't batch list anymore,
I was hoping,
prefer not to.
if there's agreement that we're proceeding with this, I was hoping it's done in time for the both of that we're working on.
Yeah, I think we just have to find out if it was originated here or if it was brought here
Oh,
and just
okay.
put up because ownership changed on something, right?
Very common for
Yeah.
paper companies, even today, but then especially for them to get, only last a couple of years and get bought out or dissolved or whatever.
Oh, yeah, the name changes and.
Yeah. But it could be something that we record a note too, right? It just may not be designated because the history's not related to here, but it could be something that's noteworthy in another way, right?
Well, because of
Part of
the
that place
Legion,
making.
because of the war, yeah, I wonder, would Guy Trafford County know the answer to it?
He may.
He might,
may.
because
don't.
he's.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
But we might be able to do some digging to find out if it was. How it originated. and
Where-
when it came
yeah.
in.
okay, it's a big plaque and it lists all the names, like it's got columns and columns of names. And then my second question, I've been talking to Michael Birch. About the James Walk, because you wanted to do a heritage walk, and so Michael and I got into this long exchange of emails, and we ended up on a different topic, which is cultural. What was the word? Commemorative plaques. So he and I have a list, which is 3 pages long now, of buildings that are culturally significant but have nothing to do with heritage. And I just wondered, like, so for example, Morley Torgoff grew up on where Shabby Motley is now, but we've designated the house that the Bethune family lived in on Woodward. He knows of artists and Margaret Atwood, there's a list. I don't need to go through it. I'll share it with you if anybody's interested in it. But I'm just wondering about that falls outside the mandate of this group, right? Because we're only doing.
I think, well, there's two parts to it because being culturally significant can tie into a
To
heritage
heritage, yes.
designation, right?
Okay,
So that was for Woodward. So
Yes.
Woodward fell into that because it had, the style of the house was different than a lot of houses with the block. But
right.
then it also had the tie to Bethune, right?
Right.
So
And
that was
then-
part of that whole designation
Yeah.
report,
The
whereas.
Margaret Atwood one, her house is gone. But her dad worked at the Bug Lab, so the Bug Lab is designated, right? There's a bit of a.
Oh, at the
connection there. Yeah, the Lands and Forests building.
Okay, yeah, so
But her residence at the corner of Boren and Pim the property is there, but the building is new on that property.
Yeah.
And then the Torgoff house is still, in theory, it's still here. They lived above the store kind of thing, but so just in general, like, Michael would be interested in, having a project where
Yeah.
we go this route and designate, have some cultural things that might relate to artists and authors.
in some of the properties, we are like, you know what I mean, between the property and the cultural significance.
Yes,
Could potentially be worthy of designation, right, if you're meeting those criteria. So those may be the ones that you wanna start with. I think if you share the list.
Oh,
I can
okay.
take a look and see
I could do that.
what other avenues there are for recognition, right? Is it become you know,
Well,
we have the walking tours as an example, right? So we have the on this spot, we have a waterfront attraction.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
a mural tour, does it become a cultural, somehow literary tour or whatever of here's the spots where,
Yeah, yeah, and he's
There's a-
looking at like a physical thing that's mounted on site, like that he sent me a photograph of an example.
yeah, so there'd be a couple pieces with that, right? So looking at the budget. We used to be able to provide small plaques. There was funding years ago to do small little plaques, bronze plaques at each of the properties that were designated.
Oh, yeah,
Haven't been able to do
we
that.
haven't done that in ages.
No, so we don't even have them on some of the properties that we should have them on.
Yeah,
Um,
oh,
so that's something
That's a
that's on my
separate topic.
radar that I'd
Okay.
like to
yeah,
start to get those properties with building plaques on them.
yeah,
As a starting piece, but I think there may be other ways to look at how to even incorporate that in, but, I think it's worth exploration and discussion.
okay,
It's a way to continue to tell our story, right?
yeah. I could, I'll share the list with you then, with everybody, Michael was involved in a project that of course involved a group of 7 in another community, and they had this whole project of plaques, and he sent me a photograph. I could share that with you too, because that's his vision of the project that he was involved in. So, yeah, okay, thank you. Interesting. Has it ever been done? Talked about this type of thing, the cultural corridor or cultural collaboration?
Different types of walks have been talked about. There's been, I don't, to my recollection, I don't remember discussions on plaques.
Okay,
We've talked about, influential people in the past that, had an impact, whether it was, Margaret
yeah.
Atwood, some of the different authors
oh,
that
yeah,
have come through that have had an impact. So there has been discussion on that, but as far as plaquing the buildings,
yeah, okay.
not that I recall.
Okay. Interesting, all right, thank you. Unless there's more new business, any other questions or random topics that you thought about last month? Correspondence is number 8.
Is newsletters, they come out once a month, I just sent renewed our Community Heritage Ontario membership. Has everybody started to receive them, or you should, if you haven't received anything by the next meeting, let me know, because Andrew sent the email list with the committee members as part of that package, right? That was the one where you had to get the check issued for the registration. So I think that's all been sent off, so you should see something coming through from Community Heritage Ontario. If you don't, let me know and we'll make sure you get a direct connection, okay?
I think I got one this morning.
Yeah, so just double check, if you're not receiving anything, let me know. They have some interesting publications in there, so it'll be highlights on different heritage projects that are happening throughout Ontario, and so it's a nice little newsletter, it's not too long, but
Okay. So the last item is our next meeting is May 7th at noon. And we can adjourn this, we can have a motion to adjourn, and leaves. That's funny, that's in the corner, I always look to that corner.
yeah, Colin's just off the charts today.
That's where I'm calling.
Come on, Colin, step up.
Thanks, Sarah.